The backstage hallway smelled faintly of sweat, stage smoke, and antiseptic, an odd combination that somehow felt sacred. The crowd outside roared like thunder, thousands of voices colliding, a living ocean of excitement. But in this narrow, dim corridor, the world slowed to a single heartbeat. Leo Stanton, the Prince of Shadows himself, stepped quietly to a small corner where a little girl waited. She wasn't dressed for the chaos of a concert, didn't wear sequins or glitter. Her head was wrapped in a soft scarf, a thin hospital gown draped over her fragile frame, and tubes snaked gently from her nose, taped to her cheeks like invisible lifelines. Her name was Clara, and at 9 years old, she had been battling leukemia for nearly half her life. Her mother, Miriam, hovered close, hands clutching the edges of a wheelchair as though she could hold the world steady for just a moment longer. The anticipation in Miriam's chest was almost unbearable. She had spent years protecting Clara from the harshness of reality, from the heartbreak of treatment schedules, from the constant reminder that time was slipping through their fingers. But tonight was different. Tonight, Clara was about to meet her hero. And Leo Stanton, Ozzy to everyone else, but simply Leo here, was about to make her world unrecognizable. The first time Clara had discovered his music, she had been hiding in her hospital room during a storm. The TV had been on low, static on the channel she had never watched before. Then came his voice, gravelly, commanding, and strangely tender. The notes struck something in her that no medicine ever had. She had sat up in bed, eyes wide, and whispered to her stuffed rabbit, "I think he knows me." From that day on, Leo's music was more than sound. It was courage, a shield, a spark of life inside a girl who had forgotten how to play. Miriam had initially been wary. Rock concerts were chaos, messy, loud, everything the hospital wasn't. But when she saw Clara's eyes light up at every lyric, every riff, she knew this was more than a fleeting admiration. It was Clara's lifeline. The charity that made tonight possible had pulled every string imaginable. There had been late-night calls, emails, and promises, all culminating in this moment. Clara, inches away from her hero, in a world built just for her. Leo knelt slowly, the bracelets on his wrists jingling softly, his worn leather jacket creaking as he bent toward her. His tattoos were stark against the pale skin of her hands, and for the first time, Clara didn't look at him as a rock star. She looked at him like he carried something real, something powerful, something meant just for her. He held her hand with a gentleness that surprised Miriam. The press of his fingers was firm yet tender, like an anchor in a storm. Then he leaned forward, lips brushing Clara's forehead. Miriam's breath caught. She felt a shiver run through her body, the kind that comes when you know you're about to witness something beyond understanding. He whispered something only Clara could hear. For a long moment, nothing happened. Then her eyes shimmered with something Miriam couldn't place. Joy, wonder, disbelief, a spark that had been absent for months. Clara's lips parted slightly and she nodded slowly, almost reverently. And in that heartbeat, Miriam's knees went weak. She couldn't breathe. She wanted to cry, to scream, to collapse, because whatever Leo had said had penetrated deeper than any medicine, deeper than any therapy, deeper than anything she had ever imagined. The moment stretched on like liquid gold until the chaos outside, the screaming fans, the flashing lights, faded completely. Clara was no longer just a patient. She was a girl on the cusp of something magical, holding a secret too powerful for words. "Mom," Clara whispered, her voice soft but unwavering. "It's okay." He understands. Miriam's throat tightened. "Understands what, baby?" Clara shook her head. "It's our secret." And that secret became the pulse of her final months. Every hospital visit, every exhausting treatment, every sleepless night was colored with it. Leo had given her something intangible, a force she could hold on to, a reason to endure when her body wanted to give in. For days after, Clara couldn't stop humming a melody that seemed to belong to the whisper. It wasn't just any song. It was fragments of something larger, something alive. She began jotting notes in a small notebook, At first just scribbles, doodles of stars, clouds, and music notes. But gradually, the sketches turned into words, words into lines, lines into verses. She was composing a song. Miriam watched silently, awestruck and terrified all at once. Each day, Clara grew frailer, her body betraying her, yet her spirit surged. It was as if Leo's words had ignited a fire inside her, one that refused to dim no matter how weak she became. One evening, as the hospital lights dimmed to a soft glow, Clara asked for a small guitar. Miriam hesitated, her heart thudding. "It's too heavy, sweetie." "You're too tired," Clara's eyes glistened with determination. "I can do it. I have to." Miriam relented, watching her daughter's tiny fingers fumble across the strings. The notes were uneven, discordant, imperfect. But then Clara hummed, soft yet clear. The room transformed. It wasn't just a hospital anymore. It was a sanctuary. The melody swelled in the dim light, fragile but unstoppable. Miriam's tears fell silently, realizing that whatever Leo had whispered wasn't just comforting. It was a mission, a purpose, a reason for Clara to fight against time itself. Night after night, Clara returned to her notebook, filling pages with lyrics that mirrored the energy and courage Leo had sparked within her. Stars, skies, hope, forever. Words that stitched together a universe of her own making, and Miriam watched, heart breaking and soaring at the same time. She knew that the whisper had done what nothing else could. It had turned fear into creation, fragility into defiance. And yet the irony was cruel. The more Clara lived in this bubble of inspiration, the more her body faltered. The doctors whispered updates Miriam didn't want to hear, but Clara, in her small, luminous way, kept going. Every note, every lyric, every hum was a small rebellion against the illness that threatened to claim her. Then came the night when Clara's energy almost left her entirely. Miriam held her daughter in her arms, clutching the notebook as if it were a lifeline. "Don't go," she whispered, shaking. "Please, just a little longer." Clara smiled faintly, the spark in her eyes unextinguished. "It's finished, Mom." The song, "It's all here." Her hand trembled as she gestured toward the notebook. Miriam could hardly believe it. After weeks of struggling, after battles with exhaustion and pain, her daughter had completed her masterpiece. With a weak, fragile voice, Clara began to sing. At first, the notes were hesitant, quivering, but as the song progressed, they grew stronger, imbued with the soul of a child who had experienced the weight of mortality, yet refused to surrender. The words painted images of stars and skies, of love that transcends bodies, of life and hope and forever. Miriam wept silently, holding her daughter's small hand, feeling the beauty of creation pour from someone who had known so much suffering, yet remained defiant. Clara finished the song with a whisper, eyes closing briefly. "Tell him I finished." Her hand fell limp, and in that instant, Miriam understood. Leo Stanton had not merely comforted her daughter. He had given her a mission, a reason to live fully, to create, to leave a mark on the world even in the smallest way. His whisper had been more than words. It had been a spark of life, a call to courage, a secret too powerful for anyone else to know. Miriam held the notebook to her chest, tears soaking the pages. She knew Clara's body was fragile, perhaps too fragile to last. But what Leo had given her daughter would endure, an eternal flame that no illness could extinguish. And in that moment, she also realized something profound. Sometimes the greatest gifts are not medicine, not money, not miracles that save a body. Sometimes the greatest gifts are whispers, meant for a single heart, that ignite something far larger than anyone could imagine. Outside, the roar of the crowd continued. Inside, a small girl had sung her final song, carrying within her the unspoken words of a rock legend who had understood far more than anyone else could. And her mother, broken yet uplifted, would remember that whisper for the rest of her life. The hospital room was quiet now, the soft hum of machines marking each fragile heartbeat. The fluorescent lights above flickered faintly, casting shadows across the walls. shadows that seemed to dance with every whispered memory of the night Clara had met Leo Stanton. Miriam sat in a chair so close to the bed that she could feel every shallow breath her daughter drew. The notebook rested in Clara's lap, the pages slightly wrinkled from hours of feverish writing and careful turning. Clara's eyes opened slowly, pupils catching the soft glow of the bedside lamp. There was a spark there Miriam hadn't seen in weeks, a subtle fire that trembled but refused to go out. Clara's lips moved barely, a whisper that Miriam leaned in to catch. "Mom, I think it's time." Miriam's heart skipped. "Time for what, sweetheart?" Her voice was trembling, a mixture of fear, hope, and disbelief. Clara gave a faint smile, one that carried a weight far beyond her 9 years. "For the song. It's ready to leave me now, to go to him." Miriam didn't understand. "Leave you? Go to who?" "The song, Mom. Leo. He whispered it into me, remember? The secret? It's meant to be sung all the way through. I have to finish it where he can hear it, even if it's just in spirit." Her words were fragile, delicate, but filled with the conviction of someone who had glimpsed a world beyond the pain, a purpose that transcended her failing body. Miriam swallowed hard, tears threatening to spill. She wanted to stop her daughter, to cling to her with every ounce of strength, but there was something in Clara's eyes that warned against it. This was beyond them now. Hours later, the hospital corridor was silent, the cleaning crew gone, the night deep and thick outside the windows. Miriam wheeled Clara into the small hospital chapel, a place she had never thought they would use for anything but quiet reflection. The pews were cold, the stained glass muted in the darkness, but for Clara, it was perfect. Clara set the notebook on the altar, fingertips brushing the edge as if it were a sacred artifact. She lifted the small guitar Miriam had helped her carry and positioned it carefully across her lap. Her hands were trembling, barely able to reach the strings, but her eyes were sharp, focused, determined. "Do it, Mom," she whispered. "Hold my hand if you need, but let me do this." "I have to." Miriam nodded, sitting beside her, gripping Clara's hand tightly and letting her daughter's resolve guide them both. The first strum was uncertain, a shaky note that faltered in the empty chapel. But then Clara hummed, a soft, trembling hum that carried the weight of every hospital night, every tube, every medicine, every whispered hope. The melody was hesitant at first, fragile as a snowflake, but it began to take form. The song unfolded slowly, notes weaving between the lines of the notebook, stories of stars that never fade, of skies that stretch beyond pain, of a courage so fierce it could defy even the finality of life. Miriam wept silently beside her daughter, understanding that this was more than music. It was a legacy, a gift, a soul imprint. As Clara continued, a strange phenomenon began. The lights above flickered with rhythm, soft shadows moving across the pews, as if the universe itself bent to the energy of her song. Miriam gasped quietly, unsure whether she was seeing something real or simply the culmination of grief and hope twisting together. Clara's voice grew stronger, more confident, every word imbued with clarity. She sang not for the room, not for her mother, not even for the fleeting audience of hospital staff who had stopped at the chapel doorway. She sang for Leo, for the whisper that had lit this fire inside her, for the promise of something eternal. Halfway through, her body shook violently, exhaustion clawing at her every muscle. Miriam tightened her grip on her daughter's hand, willing her to continue, praying she could. Clara's lips quivered, a tear sliding down her cheek, but she didn't stop. She hummed through the pain, strummed the guitar with what little energy she had left, and pressed forward. The final stanza approached. Clara's words, soft yet unwavering, poured out like a river breaking free. Stars above shine for me, skies that hold eternity, love that never ends. Here I leave my melody, forever, beyond the pain, forever, beyond the end. Miriam's tears streamed freely, the notebook now soaked with both sweat and emotion. She felt the enormity of the moment. Her daughter was leaving more than just a song in this world. She was leaving courage, a beacon for anyone who would ever need it. The whisper of Leo Stanton had become a voice strong enough to defy mortality itself. Clara's fingers slipped from the guitar, and she slumped forward slightly. Miriam held her upright, her own sobs echoing in the empty chapel. "You did it, baby. You did it." Clara's eyes fluttered closed, a faint smile lingering. "It's finished. Tell him I did it." And then, as if the universe itself recognized the completion of the mission, something extraordinary happened. The soft hum of the chapel lights coalesced into a gentle warmth. The shadows settled. Miriam felt a presence, not tangible, not frightening, but undeniable. She whispered, half to herself, half in awe, "Leo." Clara's hands, still entwined with hers, grew impossibly warm. Miriam felt a pulse, a vibration that wasn't just her daughter's heartbeat. It was as though the energy of the whisper, the music, and the song itself had become a living entity. She pressed closer, crying openly now, knowing that whatever happened next would be permanent. Clara drew a final breath. Soft, faint, but deliberate. She exhaled, a whisper that seemed to resonate far beyond the room. "Mom, it's time." Miriam knew, without needing explanation, that this was the culmination of everything. The music, the whisper, the song, the fight. Clara's eyes were closed, lips curved in peace. Her tiny body relaxed, and the world seemed to pause. The notebook lay open, a testament to courage and creation. Miriam clutched it to her chest, rocking back and forth, her sobs silent yet deafening. Outside, the first hints of dawn crept through the stained glass. The colors reflected on Miriam's tear-streaked face, painting her grief with beauty. The song remained, lingering in the air like perfume, like a memory that could not be erased. She read the final lines aloud through her tears, her voice shaking. "Stars above, shine for me. Skies that hold eternity. Love that never ends. Here I leave my melody. Forever, beyond the pain. Forever, beyond the end." It struck Miriam then that Leo Stanton had done more than whisper courage into a dying child. He had sparked creation, purpose, and defiance in the face of mortality. Clara had become more than a patient, more than a girl with cancer. She had become a testament to the power of words, the weight of music, and the transformative force of a single act of kindness. The hospital room, once sterile and cold, now felt sacred. The song hung in the air, invisible yet palpable, a bridge between life and legend. Miriam kissed her daughter's forehead, whispered a soft, trembling goodbye, and closed the notebook, sealing within it the final chapter of Clara's extraordinary story. Outside the city, Leo Stanton was on a stage, thousands of fans screaming his name. But somewhere in that small hospital chapel, the whisper he had shared had changed the world for one little girl, and through her, for everyone who would hear her song. Miriam knew that although Clara's body had faltered, her spirit, amplified by the whisper and immortalized in the song, would endure forever. The moment, the music, the life, everything converged in a single unbroken thread, and Miriam, holding the notebook, whispered into the quiet room, "Thank you for everything." Clara's final gift, inspired by a whisper from her hero, would travel farther than anyone could imagine. It would inspire hearts, lift spirits, and remind the world that courage sometimes comes in whispers, sometimes in music, sometimes in a moment that feels too small to matter, until it changes everything. As the first sunbeam struck the chapel window, Miriam knew one undeniable truth. The song would live, the whisper would endure, and the bond between a rock legend and a little girl with a fragile body but an unbreakable spirit would never fade. Because some words once spoken do more than comfort. They transcend time, defy mortality, and turn heartbreak into legacy.